I'm your ex-wife, and my business shouldn't be your business anymore, isn't it? Abby raised his hands to eat her, but she held his hands. Hadiswa began to panic as none of her neighbors knew her children's whereabouts. She went back to check her home again and she found a letter on the TV. She quickly opened it and it reads, Dear Hadiswa, what a surprise! I never imagined that you would have the courage of coming to the city. You didn't just come here, you snatched all my customers. I have been searching for you for months, but your parents refused to give me your address. Well, thanks to my wonderful wife's suggestion that you trail you the last time, I found out where you live and I've taken my kids with me. If you need your kids, you will need to bring a truckload of portraits to the address below. Without that, your kids will be with my wonderful wife and you will never see them again if you fail to comply. Hadiswa was shaken as she was reading the letter. She wondered why Abby wouldn't let her be after maltreating her and sending her away. Then it dawned on her that he only got married to her because of her poetry skill. Hadiswa was confused. She knows that if she does what he says, he will not stop there, but she had to do it because of her kids. After giving him the truckload of portraits, he released her kids, but just like she thought, he did not stop there. A few weeks later, he burgled her home and stole all her money. Then he left a letter telling her that he would take her kids from her again if she fails to remit half of what she makes daily to him. He also told her that he would kidnap her parents in the village and she may never see them again. Hadiswa was confused at everything happening. She didn't know what to do. She doesn't have any friends. So she decided to visit her parents in the village to let them know what is happening. When she got there, her parents were happy to see her. She told them about how she met Abby and his constant threats towards her and her kids. Her parents then advised her to inform the police in the city and that she should show the police the letter which will act as proof of his threats. Hadiswa was happy that her parents could help. She immediately went to report Abby at the police station as soon as she got back to the city. The police took her statement and assured her that they would do something about it. But as she turned to leave, she saw Abby coming into the police station, dressed in a police uniform. She was shocked. She watched as the policemen that attended to her saluted him and called him boss. Someone collected his bag and he went into his office. As Adesua stood at a corner hiding her face from him, she then went back to Aminu, the policeman that attended to her at the desk, to ask him who that man that entered the police station was. She asked him if his name was Abe, and Aminu corrected her, saying, Madam, he is not Abe, he is DSP Abe, our boss. She was confused, but she didn't want Abe to see her, so she exchanged numbers with the policeman and asked to see him in private because someone may be listening to their conversation. Hadiswa was surprised. She doesn't understand how the Abi she knows will be a DSP. She called Aminu at the close of work and they met at a park. She explained everything that happened from when Abi met her in the village and how he maltreated her and sent her away. Aminu took a deep breath when she was done and he told her that Abe is the son of the police commissioner and he is still in the force because of his father's influence. He explained that DSP Abe is known to oppress people, especially women, and he has destroyed many lives as a result. He told Adiswa that he even sells drugs and uses it too, and that's why you will find him looking unkempt sometimes. Adiswa then remembered how he looked the day she saw him with the pregnant lady. She asked Aminu if he was married, and he replied, no woman will stay with DSP Abbey because of his attitude of maltreating the women in his life. but he has over 20 baby mamas. The lady you saw with him is his nearly married wife, and she's carrying his baby. She is as evil as Abe, and they both seem to get along well. Hadiswa was shocked at all these revelations, and she realized that she may not win the battle with Abe. She asked Aminu if he could help her, but his advice to her is to give Abe whatever he asked, or she would end up losing her kids and everything she has worked for. Aminu asked to take his leave and begged Adiswa not to mention it to anyone that he told her anything about Abe or he would lose his job. Adiswa understood and she assured him of keeping her mouth shut. Adiswa got home that night to find Abe waiting for her at her doorstep. He asked her why she came to the city and she replied that she wanted a better life for her and her kids. Abe laughed hysterically and he said, "You, Adeswa, my lazy and ungrateful ex-wife, want the best for my kids? You are a joke. The problem is that you think you are smart, but you are not smart in any way. I know you are in the city to sleep with the big men here. You are not here for any business like you claim." Adeswa replied, "And so, how is it any of your concern, even if I'm here to sleep with the big men? I'm your ex-wife, and my business shouldn't be your business anymore, isn't it?" Abe raised his hands to eat her, but she held his hands. She told him never to try that again. She asked him to leave and never come to her house again. He asked her to remit the poultry sold, but Adesua told him she wouldn't do that again, telling him to do his worst. Abe laughed again as he left her, whistling away. Adesua eased and locked her door behind her as she went in with her kids. Even though she confronted Abe, she was scared and she's not sure of what he would do next. The next day, Adesua got to her store to find it burgled. All her goods were gone and her store destroyed. She wailed and wailed as her neighbors watched in pity. She knew it was Abe who did it, and without thinking twice, she went to the police station. Aminu was not on seat, so she asked the policeman on seat if Abe was around, but he replied that he wasn't. She waited for him to arrive, and as soon as he stepped out of his car, she began to cry and asked him why he hated her so much that he would take away her source of livelihood when she did nothing wrong. She called him a heartless man who would take advantage of young women and do anything to destroy their lives. Without replying to her or saying a word, Abe went into his office. A few minutes later, Adesua was arrested by the policemen. She struggled with them, trying to free herself, but the policemen locked her up in the cell. She was tortured and beaten for 3 days before Abe decided to free her. By the time she got out, her face had swollen. Abe asked his men to bring her to his office. He laughed at Adeswa's swollen face and asked her if she enjoyed the 3 days spent in the cell. She did not reply him. He hit her on the face and asked that she reply promptly and properly to him whenever he talks to her, or he would lock her up again. With tears streaming down her face, she replied, "I just want to get back to my kids, please." Abe assured her that her kids were doing fine. He picked them from school after locking her up, and they've been with him since then. Hadiswa was surprised that he knew where they schooled. Abe saw her questionable looks and he told Hadiswa that he knows everything about her and she can't hide anywhere within the city. He would find her. So he gave Hadiswa two conditions: get back to work and remit half of what you make, or lose your kids forever. Hadiswa stared at him for a long time. She asked him, "Why do you treat me this way, despite how much I loved you?" Abe replied, "I think you should ask your father that question. He is indebted to me, and when I offered him the option of getting married to his daughter or him losing his home, he chose the latter. He borrowed a huge amount of money from me years back. Ask him and he would explain." Adiswa was speechless. She replied, I'm not aware of any debt my father owed you, but I'm ready to do as you say. When can I see my kids? You mean our kids, right? Abby asked menacingly. Yes, our kids. Adesua replied grudgingly. I'll bring them to you later tonight. You may go now, and don't forget to make as much potteries as possible. No stories. Abby affirms. Yes, no stories. Adesua replied, with fear written all over her. When Adesua left the police station, the first place she visited was a village. She needed an explanation for her parents about the money they owed Abby. When her parents saw her, they screamed and asked her if she had an accident. But she replied that Abby did that to her. Her father fell to the ground, crying. Before she asked any questions, he began to talk. Adesua, my daughter, I know I have offended you greatly, and I'm responsible for everything you passed through from the day you got married to Abby. The day he came and saw you making pottery, he was here to collect his debts. Years ago, I wanted to change our situation and decided to lend some money to start a cocoa business, but it resulted in a huge loss and I couldn't pay him back. He has been sending his men to get the money in bits, but at one point I couldn't pay again. This was why he came around by himself that day. After asking if he could marry you, I told him yes, and he told me that I do not have to pay my debt again as soon as you become his wife. But when you told me that has been getting trucks of portraits from you for years without giving you anything for your effort, I knew he was a bad man. The money I owed him is not up to what he makes from a truckload of portraits. Happy is a greedy man, and I pray that he meets his nemesis soon. Adesua was angry at her father. She asked him why he had to keep everything away from her until that moment. It hurt her deeply that her father, whom she loved so much, would sell her off that way, knowing the kind of man Abe is. She left her parents feeling betrayed and angry at the same time. Unsure of what to do, Adiswa got back to her home in the city. She got to her store that day and met a customer waiting. He asked her why she hasn't been at the store for days, and she apologized, saying she has a family emergency. The young man watched her closely and he knew something was wrong. He introduced himself as Alfred and he gave Adiswa his complimentary card. When she checked the card, she found out it was lawyer. She contemplated telling him her story, but she gave up, knowing she can't win a case against Abe due to his family's reputation. She remembered how Abe threatened to deal with her if she doesn't keep to her end of the deal, and she started working on her new portraits. When she was done, she went to the police station to inform him that the products were ready, but it wasn't on set. He sent his men to pick them. She tried to meet Abe in person for over 3 months without any success. One day, she met with Aminu to find out what happened, and he informed her that Abe was taken to a rehabilitation center after taking a high dose of hard drugs. Hadiswa was surprised as she wondered how he hid this part of him from her for their 5 years of marriage. Few weeks later, Abe had gotten better and was back at work again. A few days after resuming, Abe increased the amount Adiswa will be delivering, but she was running at a loss. One day, she sat in her sitting room thinking, how long will I continue to do this? What will I do? Abe comes from a powerful family and I can't win a case against him. He might even kill me before the case gets to the courts. But I can't continue this way. This has to stop. I'm not a slave. An idea occurred to her and she got up immediately. She called the customer who gave her his complimentary card months ago and she explained everything to him and he told her exactly what to do. Later that day, she got to the station and asked to see Abby, but he wasn't on set, so she waited for him. He got there 3 hours later, and Ediswa pleaded with him to just listen to what she had to say. He was reluctant at first, but she mentioned that she has a good business deal for him. He laughed at her mockingly and ushered her in. He gave her only 5 minutes to talk, and Adiswa began to talk. Habe, after thinking for a long time, I have come to realize that I was the problem, and our marriage broke because of me. Even though you resulted in eating and slapping me whenever I challenged your authority, I should have known that you wanted the best for me. Happy was surprised to hear this. He looked at her closely for more than 5 minutes before he asked her, Interesting. And it took you over 5 years to admit this, right? Why didn't you admit your mistakes back then? Adiswa moved closer to him. She touched his head and pleaded with him to forgive her for not being a good wife. She also asked him to reconsider his deal of getting 80% from her sales, but Abby replied that the only way he would change his mind is if she's willing to leave the kids to live with him. But the kids will not want to be with you without me being there. Why do you want them around? Adiswa asked. My house is big enough. We will keep them with the maids in the flat, so the kids should be fine. Hadiswa replied that she would only agree if he can let her stay with the kids for their entire time at his place. After thinking for a few minutes, he allowed Adiswa and she told him she would be there by weekend. After a weekend with Adiswa and the kids at his home, Abe took them back home in his vehicle. Before they left, he warned Adiswa about saying anything to anyone about the affairs of his home, and she promised to keep her mouth shut. Unknown to Abe, Hadiswa had a voice recorder when she visited him at the police station, and she recorded everything he said. But her lawyer friend advised her to get more concrete evidence, and she knows going to his home is the only way to get this. That was why she asked to spend the weekend with him. She has photos and video evidence of Abby using drugs with his pregnant wife. She also took pictures of where it was stored in his home. With a big smile etched on her lips, Adesua left his vehicle feeling like a heavy burden has just been lifted off her shoulders. Adesua then contacted her lawyer, whom she discovered was the best lawyer in town, and with his help and all the evidence gathered, she won the case with ease. The court granted her sole custody of the kids, and Abe was asked to compensate her for all the years he has maltreated her and stole from her. Abe was also convicted for his illegal activities, and he got a long sentence for going against the law as a law enforcement officer. Adeswa was happy that she was finally able to get justice, and she lived happily, free from the claws of Habe. The moral of this story is that we shouldn't change who we are because of anyone, and we should always believe in ourselves. Please like this video if you enjoy it, and tell me where you're watching from. Thank you.